We pick up in chapter 6. It was surprising to me when someone would drive in from Penn State. Some we scarcely knew. I think it was curiosity that directed them to see how we fared out here in the Wild West. One such couple arrived, friends of Peter's family, when I was in the middle of my laundry. I had to haul the water in buckets and heat it on the stove. And then I scrubbed the dirty socks, jeans, towels, and other laundry using an old-fashioned scrubbing board in the tub. Our visitors were checking up on us, I thought. Quickly, I covered the tub of soapy water with clothes soaking in it and asked them to sit down while I fixed some coffee. "We thought we'd stay over till tomorrow night if it's okay with you," they said. "Sure," I said, frantically thinking, where will I put them up? Then I remembered we had put up twin beds in the loft room above where the boys were staying in the ranch house. I had enough clean bedding, so made up the beds. I showed them where they could wash outside, also the three-seater privy out under the aspen trees. When they were all set, I told them, "We're invited to a bridge and potluck party this evening. I know you'll be more than welcome. It's Saturday, and the boys working at the ski area like to go to Denver for the weekend. I don't have to worry about feeding them." I sat around talking to the couple who looked amazedly around them. "Don't you get terribly bored out here?" asked the wife. I thought to myself, I'm bored right now. I would rather have had my clothes drying in the wind and been off on a walk with the children. They thankfully were up at Ganon's playing cowboys and Indians around the cliffs of Porcupine Mountain. Instead, I had to sit here and serve tea to someone I'd never visited or had them visit us back east. We had never wanted to belong to the country club crowd, of which they were active members. Max, Earl, and the boys finally came back. After washing up, changing clothes, and gathering the kids from up the road, we headed out to one of the ranches for a delicious dinner and several hours of bridge. Fortunately, our guests were bridge players par excellence, so Max and I, who were complete beginners, bowed out and enjoyed kibitzing. Around 10 o'clock, someone said, "It's time to get over to the Dillon Town Hall for the dance." I told our guests that it would be a lively square dance and a potluck supper. "You'll be right hungry after a square or two," they were informed by a player at their table. "We've never done any square dancing," they said beseechingly. "Oh, we'll learn you," our good rancher friends assured them. I think it was about 3 o'clock in the morning when our Mr. Guest asked, with his eyes about to close, "When does this ordeal by dance end?" We took pity on them and drove home. I didn't have the heart to tell them that we would be awakened at 6 o'clock the next morning so we could all be out at the Higgins Ranch for the branding. We were looking forward to it. The beer cooling in the stream, trying to hold down a young calf, which I was determined to try and did, and the great supper on the ranch porch overlooking the valley of the 10-Mile Range. The next morning, as our guests took their departure, I noticed they did not ask me if we ever got bored out here. Mrs. Guest did say, with a twinkle in her eyes, "Can't wait to tell my friends back east about those prairie oysters." I said, "I didn't tell you because he didn't want me to, but Tom Higgins, our host at the branding yesterday, is a graduate of Penn State, and his wife is a graduate of Wells College. Out here, we couldn't have better neighbors. Frankly, I don't care where they come from, and what's more, they don't care where we come from. It's another world. Now Interstate I-70 intersects Hidden Valley Ranch. Condominiums start long before you come to the ranch house site. As I drive down from the Eisenhower Tunnel today, I look to the right when I come to the lovely green meadows and think back to those branding parties at the Higgins Ranch. Luckily, no condos have been built on those meadows, only across the highway to the south. Peter went back years later. He found the old garden gate and part of the hoopie that they would ride backwards to town. A hoopie is an old car which has been modified so it drives backwards to push hay in the fields. Dimp and Lula knew I wanted a real bathtub. Here they came one day with a big oil drum in the back of their pickup. It had been slit down the long side and halfway across the ends. These flaps were folded back, and then they lifted it out of the truck onto the ground. The fold-out sides set right into the dirt, so it was very steady. "There," said Dimp, "you've got the best gall-darn bathtub in the county. All you got to do is fill it from the ditch in the morning, let the water warm in the sun, and you've got a real nice bath." How great, I thought, and I thanked them heartily. "By the way, Dimp," I asked, "do you know who that clown was at the rodeo Sunday?" Dimp and Lula laughed loudly. Lula just about choked, she laughed so hard. "You mean you don't know? Why, you eat breakfast with him every day and even sleep with him." "What?" I couldn't believe it. "Max?" But then again, who else could have caught that calf? Max had even tried to teach me some rope tricks. Of course he didn't dare tell us. He probably thought Oma and Opa and I would be upset. Wait till I tell him I know. "Don't be too hard on him, Edna," said Dimp. "After all, I loaned him those striped overalls. A cowboy wouldn't be caught dead in that kind, but I wear 'em in the mine." When the crew returned from that afternoon from Arapahoe Basin, I asked Max, "By the way, I've been wondering who that clown was at the rodeo last Sunday." "You're looking right at him, honey," Max smiled. "But don't tell Oma and Opa. They'll think I've really come down in the world." "That flask of whiskey you had in your back pocket, where did you get that from?" I asked. "It was funny when the old cowboy dove for it in the dust. I let it fall out on purpose to see what would happen. It looked like whiskey was flowing out of it, but Lula had filled it with tea. She and Dimp thought up that one. Come over here and see the beautiful bathtub that Lula and Dimp brought." "It'll take a lot of buckets of water from that irrigation dip to fill it," Max said. "I can already envision myself lying luxuriously in all that sun-warmed water," I answered. I decided that the first thing tomorrow I would try it. Next morning found me hauling buckets of water to fill the tub. I'd set it up on the east side of the cabin where it would get the early morning sun and none of the afternoon west wind. One drawback was this was close to the Montezuma Road with no trees for privacy. I remembered that in the shed, stored with Oma and Opa's other items, was a 4-paneled wooden folding screen. If I put this around the head of the tub, I would be well shielded from any cars going by on the road. After lunch, when the kids were taking their naps, I undressed in the cabin. I wrapped the towel around me and ran out to the tub. Draping the towel over the screen, I climbed into the delicious warm water and stretched out full length. It was a good-sized oil drum. Soaping myself, I let the water run over my arms, outstretched to the sun. I listened to the birds, the ripple of ditch water running past the garden, the chattering of chipmunks, and thought, what luxury! Suddenly, although I was not aware of the arrival of a car, I heard someone laughing and the gentle tooting of a car horn. I looked around. There was a car parked at the gate with two couples watching me and laughing hilariously. Bewildered, I looked for the screen. The screen had blown, the breeze had blown it gently over, and there in the dust lay both the screen and the towel. Embarrassed, I ducked down as far as I could into the tub. Fortunately, they took pity on me and soon drove away. I made a wild dash to the cabin. After that, I had Max move the tub so that the cabin was between me and the road. I had seen pictures of peasants washing clothes at the side of a stream. It was too warm to wear a babushka on my head, but I felt I should do so to make the picture perfect. With my tub of warm water set down next to the irrigation ditch, and with a scrubbing board I found in Dillon, I could do the laundry, rinsing it all in the ditch. Our garden was doing well as far as lettuce and carrots were concerned. The peas were starting to develop too. Soon the boys would have something besides lettuce and carrots every night. We had used up all our canned salmon from Washington, but it had helped to vary our venison diet. After supper was finished, I would take any leftovers out to my compost heap near the garden. In order to get to the garden, I had to jump the irrigation ditch. One evening, as I jumped across, I almost collided with a startled fawn. She had been nibbling on my garden, or on my lettuce. She stopped in fright, and I did too. But not in fright. I was so thrilled to be within touching distance of this beautiful animal. We stared at each other for several seconds in the bright moonlight. Suddenly, she whirled around and literally flew into the aspens. I threw my arms up to the moon and laughed. I love it here, I shouted. No one heard me but the fawn, which was watching from the shadows of the aspens. Rolf and Sonny and the Ganong children climbed and played on the slopes of the mountains. They would come home each day with a tick or two buried in their hair. Dimp and Lula had warned us to check not only the children but ourselves. Since all the children were fair-haired, it was no problem to find these dark, slow-crawling insects. At first, I was terrified at the thought of their getting tick fever with a doctor no nearer than Idaho Springs. Fortunately, they stayed well. Max worked hard clearing out the nearby dead timber. After getting rid of the old buildings, building 2 ponds, and irrigating our meadow, we hardly saw any more ticks.